Hello, Scrufftards. Welcome back to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And in this video, we are returning to the River War, or the potential River War, because Ukraine keeps getting boats, and they have now released yet another video where they show us training amphibious landings. So they released a exciting video with music and everything. I'll try and remember and provide a link. And in that video, we can see 5 Finnish USCO assault craft, also the British Ork offshore raider. This, I don't know what this is. I can't really tell. Is it an Ork? No, I don't know. It seems to have some armor plates up on the side, so you can take cover and shoot from within the vehicle, or the boat that is moving around. So not sure what that is, and yeah, well, this guy looks like he means business. But they release a lot of footage of the USCO, primarily the Finnish assault craft. Which is a bit of a shame because, you know, they have received Swedish Combat Boat 90, very advanced, top of the line, some of the best assault boats on the planet. But we'll see if we get some images and footage of the Combat Boat 90 eventually. And, you know, they show us images of the troops storming a shoreline or where the water, river or ocean connects with land, and they jump off and they move up and do all the kinds of infantry shenanigans. Some video of them as they're on the boat, protected by 50 cal. They are providing security. Bags in the middle as they're moving across open water, and same thing here. You know, infantry on the railings providing security. I think this is an USK as well. This is probably an USK too. So they like the Finnish boats. They're using them a lot, but because I think it's part of the propaganda, it provides an easy to accept mental image because we all know what went on D-Day during World War II. We have all seen Saving Private Ryan, and the USCO is that type of old school assault vessel where you just fill it up with a bunch of troops, drive up to a shoreline, and they just storm the beaches. So using the USCO, the Ukrainians, they evoke this feeling of D-Day from World War II, and we all know what that means. You drive up to the shoreline, Marines jump ashore, and they kick ass, and all hell breaks loose. So I think it's quite intentional that the USCO is being used. It's because it evokes the World War II storming the beaches imagery that we have imprinted in our brains and memories. Yeah, and they're putting the Finnish boats to good use, and it's a good video. It's cool music as well. Wow, yeah. And towards the end of the video, they show us this thing, and this is a Ukrainian patrol craft with 2 turrets with autocannons, and I do believe that each turret has a missile launcher as well. This thing here, I believe, is 2 tubes for missiles. And so, I mean, this is a lot of firepower in a small river or in an archipelago where you can't really move around with larger warships. So if you have all the USCOs, the combat boat 90s, the orcs and what have you, supported by a couple of these, you have a lot of firepower and you can more easily suppress an enemy holding a shoreline, so you can move those transports up to the shore and get get the Marines onto land for some ground operations. So where does this leave us? Well, just the day before, we actually learned that the UK will provide even more artillery, more ammunition, more of a lot of stuff to Ukraine, including more boats. So we are right now, let's see here, the Netherlands, they have supplied 3 combat boat 90 and 22 high-speed transports. Sweden, 10 combat boat 90 and 20 high-speed transports. And the UK has now promised Ukraine a total of 110 boats of various types, including the Ork, the offshore raiding craft. And we also have Steel Front, and this is a Ukrainian civilian effort that has provided Ukraine with 3 combat boat 90. So that's 16 combat boat 90 in total. Finland has provided, as far as we know, at least 5 ÖSK assault craft. But we also know that the Finnish boats would in the end require 50 crew. And an ÖSK requires a crew of 2, but when we look at the images, we see that they have gunners, 250 cals on them. So that could mean that each ÖSK has a crew of 4. So that may leave us with, I don't know, 10 to 12 vessels potentially. But we have 173 confirmed boats of various types. 168 from the Netherlands, Sweden, the UK, and Steel Front, plus the 5 confirmed ÖSK that we've seen in the images and footage. And of these, like I said, 16 are combat boat 90, heavily armed, heavily armored, very fast assault craft that are designed to drive straight up to a shoreline, open up a ramp at the front of the boat, and Marines, 18 of them, charge out and take the fight to the enemy on land. But that's not all. We also have an unknown number of boats promised by Australia as well as the United States. So we are well and truly well beyond 200 boats provided by various nations to Ukraine. And on top of that, we also have Ukraine's own vessels, like the patrol boat we took a look at, as well as other boats that has already been provided to Ukraine. United States provided boats during 2022 and 2023, for instance. So, I mean, Ukraine has a lot of boats at this point. And if they don't put them to use, that would be a waste, wouldn't it? And it's not like they're going to be using them to patrol the border with Belarus or Belarus or whatever it's called nowadays. They're going to use these boats down around Kherson or Crimea. And on that topic of where all these boats, where they might be used, I wanted to highlight this blue area here, because this is from 2023. Ukraine began the big summer offensive. And as they made the push over at Robotyne Verbove, they made a couple of attempts to cross the Dnipro. They crossed here at the Antonov Bridge, famously, and of course up at Krinky, and they're still holding on to positions there, and the Russians, they're struggling to kick those Ukrainian Marines out. But Ukraine also claimed that they made a big push here, that's the light blue area, straight down south here along the river. And this is very interesting if we take a look what is down here, where the Ukrainians potentially were heading. Because they were heading for the town of Hola Pristan, right? Here we have the light blue. Ukraine were pushing down, didn't get all as far as they wanted, but they were clearly heading for Hola Pristan. And what can we find in this town? Well, we can find ports that can house ocean-going cargo ships, transport ships. Take a look. So this here is located right here. It's a refinery on the edge of town. And then if you follow the river into town itself, we find this port, right? So Hola Pristan can receive large ocean-going cargo ships. And that's not unimportant, because if Ukraine establishes a foothold on occupied territory on the far side of the river, they need to somehow bring in supplies, reinforcements, tanks, artillery, ammunition, all of that good stuff. And you need, for that to happen, you either need a bunch of bridges that won't be shot to pieces by Russia, or uh, ports that can receive large cargo ships. And yes, Russia can obviously aim missiles at these ports, but if they're shooting missiles at these locations, if you put up good enough air defenses, you should be able to intercept them, right? And protect these ports and protect the ships as they're moving down the rivers here. So this is what Ukraine was after in 2023. And if Ukraine wants to push across the Dnipro and threaten Crimea, they need to be able to move in a lot of manpower, a lot of resources. And to do that, they need solid ports that can receive large ocean-going cargo ships. So Holapristan is very important for Ukraine, and that is why I think this is where they will go with all these boats that they have just received. And well, so Holapristan and the oil refinery, and right where this tree is where those other ships were anchored at port. So Ukraine will try and push down south and secure the town of Holapristan. But in order for them to be able to get all the ships into port, they need to move up the Konka River, and that means Ukraine needs to secure the delta. So this is where we will see most of the action, would be my guess. This is where Ukraine will rely on these boats to take over one island after the other until they control the delta, maybe even make landfall. These orange lines are fortifications, by the way. Maybe make landfall down here, even if the Russians are prepared for that eventuality, in order to protect the ships as they come in through the bay and move up the Konka River to Holapristan and these vital locations where they can bring ashore all the equipment. But this is where I think Ukraine will utilize all those boats to secure the delta, to secure Holapristan, maybe even the towns down here, to allow larger cargo ships to come in and unload troops, manpower, equipment, and tanks here at Holapristan. And this is what I jokingly call Operation Käftsmäll. Käftsmäll is a Swedish word for a solid, heavy, massive punch across the jaw. Right? There's just no confusion. If someone says I was hit by Käftsmäll, everyone knows what that is. But what is Operation Käftsmäll in the end? It could actually be a massive psyops, because Ukraine has been very open with that they're getting these boats and that they're training with them. They've released 2 videos, and in one video they're actually storming beaches with flags and banners, very cinematic. And of course this will force Russia to, take it seriously. Russia needs to have a lot of manpower down at Kherson, down at Crimea, just in case Ukraine will try and make an amphibious landing. But if Ukraine wants to cross the river or the ocean, I mean, they have a lot of boats. It would be very weird if they didn't use them. They have a bunch of options. They could be crossing the river, crossing the delta, like I said. They could try and cross the bay, or assaulting Crimea directly, even if the logistical supply lines would be very long and would be easy targets for Russian missiles out at sea. But it could also be something else, like I'm showing here on the image, that they're just trying to attack Russia on the flip side down at Lazurne. Instead of moving for Crimea, they instead head for the peninsula south of Kherson. Or maybe they just want to get across somewhere, grab a small village, and hold it with as many Marines as possible to create another Krinky. right? Because at Krinky you had like 200, 300 Ukrainian Marines, and they tied down some, or tied up rather, thousands of Russian soldiers and tons of Russian resources. So maybe they just want to go across and grab a village or two to make that happen all over again, tying up Russian troops and resources in this area so that they can't be used elsewhere. So, I mean, Ukraine has a bunch of options here, and so we just don't know what Operation Käftsmäll in the end, uh, how it will, you know, play out. But it would be very weird if Ukraine did nothing with these boats, because they have spent more than 6 months of just harassing Russian air-to-air installations south of Kherson, and especially down on Crimea, taking out missiles, taking out radars, attacking air bases, striking airfields and what have you, blowing up headquarters and all of that. I mean, they have been sending in drones, sending in missiles, sending in whatever at these locations, ensuring that any Ukrainian air operations in this area would be a lot easier to perform. They would play out a lot smoother than anywhere else along the front line. So you have this going on where Ukraine is putting in a lot of effort with drones and missiles, a lot of resources to take out Russian anti-air assets in this region. A region where you also now have a lot of boats and where we see Ukrainians training for amphibious landings. I mean, it kind of adds up that Ukraine has something planned. Amphibious landings supported by aircraft, potentially the F-16s. So I think this is where we will see the F-16s, to be honest. I think Ukraine is waiting for the F-16s so that they can use them to support the amphibious landings. And if they take out enough Russian anti-air installations, then Russia has no other choice but to send in its air force to try and hunt down the F-16s and to counter the Marines on the ground. And that will bring the Russian air force into range of Ukraine's SAM sites, surface-to-air missiles, potentially Patriots. And then we will start to see Russian fighters getting shot down en masse on top of it all. So there's just too much adding up for Ukraine not to be planning to do this somewhere down around Kherson, potentially Crimea, even if I think that's suicide. But I think something will happen south of Kherson. I think Ukraine will try and cross the river. And I think they will try to do it this year, not en masse. I don't think they will try and make this big D-Day thing where they just push across and start liberating territory south of Kherson. I think that will happen next year. But I think that this year Ukraine will at least try and establish beachheads that they can then exploit next year. So I think they will cross and establish beachheads this year down here at Kherson. Because if they don't, Russia will just keep building up defenses and forces down here in preparation for the eventual Ukrainian crossing, and then it may be too late to do anything about it. And also, at the moment, Russia is dictating terms along the entire front line. I've made a couple of videos about this. This is why they're attacking up here. This is why they're attacking here. This is to control the narrative or the tempo of actions, right? Russia is attacking all over the place, forcing Ukraine to take resources away from down here, or away from here, or all over the place, and sorry, and allocate them up here. Same thing goes here. Russia pushes here. All of a sudden, Ukraine has to allocate resources up here. God damn it. Sorry. Stuff like that. And this is drawing Ukrainian troops and resources away from where Ukraine wants to fight. Ukraine wants to fight down here. They want to fight down here. But Russia is making all these YOLO Hail Mary assaults all over the place up here, forcing Ukraine to fight where Russia wants to fight, not where Ukraine wants to fight. And Russia just keeps applying pressure all along the front line, and Ukraine has to allocate resources. They can't build up a large supply base to support a future assault, future offensive, because Russia just keeps sending in troops, drawing those Ukrainian resources away from where they want to, prepare their own fight. And eventually, something happens. We've seen it at a bunch of locations that during rotation, you mess things up and Russia immediately exploits it. It happened up here last year when they almost broke through, and now they're doing it again. And it has happened a couple of times down here at Kherson and most recently at Toretsk. There's a rotation, something goes wrong, there's some miscommunication, and Russia exploits the situation. And this is because Russia is controlling the initiative. They are attacking. So they keep attacking. They attack all over the place. Ukraine has to respond. Russia is acting. Ukraine is reacting. And eventually you mess up. And that is when the force that has initiative can move in and exploit that mistake. So what Ukraine more than anything at this point needs is to turn things around and start acting instead of reacting. They need to attack. They need to force Russia to respond to Ukrainian actions. So if Ukraine can get across and get these beachheads, Russia has to respond. Russia needs to react and allocate troops down here, just like Ukraine has been forced to allocate troops up here when Russia made this move, right? Because right now, Russia is fighting wherever Russia wants. They are fighting where Russia decides where the battles will be held. Russia is dictating the tempo of the conflict. They are attacking en masse when they feel like it, slowing down the tempo when they feel like it, and Ukraine is just basically moving along. And you can't win like that. And eventually you make a mistake and the enemy exploits it, like they did here, like they did here, like they did here last year. It's just, eventually there's going to be a massive mistake, and then Russia will have a breakthrough, and then a large section of the front line could potentially collapse. Before that happens, Ukraine needs to reclaim initiative, either here at Verbove or down here at Kherson, and I'm thinking Kherson with the boats is the most likely option. Here they can get across, apply pressure, force Russia to react instead of acting, and break this endless circle at the moment where Russia is in control of the tempo of the initiative. If they can get across the river, get their beachheads, they can force Russia to move down troops down here, and it can switch things around all along the entire front line. So yeah, that was a bit of a rant there at the end. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's the end of the video, I guess. Not much else to add. Ukraine keeps getting boats. They have set things up down south, south of Kherson and in and around Crimea for something big. And I'm thinking we may see some of it this year in preparation for something even bigger next year. And next year we might actually see Operation Pungspark, the follow-up to Operation Käftsmäll. See you around. And as always, gå på marsch, Ukraine. Give them hell.